Hi guys, as you probably already know, Jordan Peterson was recently on Jubilee, and everyone has been reacting to that video. The guy is very famous and he's a very popular Christian intellectual, so let's get right into it. Jordan's first claim is that atheists reject God but don't understand what they are rejecting.
My first claim, atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting.
So, what is the justification for this claim? I think it's very weak. Basically, he says that God, if he exists, will be a being that is fundamentally unknowable and way beyond our ability to understand because our minds are so limited. Let's check it out.
The divine is fundamentally unknowable. It's a pinnacle experience, and that people in their finitude have to be shielded from a comprehensive vision of the basis of reality.
So let me make an analogy on this. Let's say a guy comes to you and tells you, "Hey, you know what, dude? I have magic powers. I can cast spells and stuff like that." Then you are like, "No way, dude. I don't believe you. That's probably crap, right?" And then he says, "Oh, so you are rejecting my claim. But you see, my magic system is super complex and it's way beyond your ability to understand. So you don't understand what you're rejecting." Right now, does that guy has a good point? I don't think so. If I don't believe in magic, it doesn't matter if you tell me that your magic system is super complex or is simple. It won't make a difference. In the same way, if I don't think there is good evidence for your God, then it is irrelevant whether you tell me that God is fundamentally impossible to understand for the human mind. I just don't believe you, period. And by the way, another thing that can be said on this point is that the argument can be easily flipped against Christians. If atheists don't understand what they are rejecting because God is fundamentally unknowable, then neither do Christians understand what they are accepting. So they are accepting something without even understanding what they're doing. So this argument can clearly cut both ways. Now let's look at one of the responses to this, which I think was pretty good.
My background is in studying to become a traditional Catholic priest, daily mass, daily rosary, going on long retreats, deep into the magisterium and biblical hermeneutics. Like I was thoroughly in it. And it seems like I do know what I'm missing.
I'm glad this guy got to the chair first because he gave a great response. He was studying to become a priest, so he probably had a very decent understanding of the God topic. Jordan's response to that is basically, "Oh, you were wrong about being a priest back then, so you could be wrong now."
While you obviously feel that you missed something when you were practicing for the priesthood, your aim was off then. So there's always the possibility that it's still off now.
This is such a bad response. If I was the other guy, I would have asked Jordan, "Hey, have you ever been wrong about something in your entire life?" And as it turns out, he has.
Maybe it's not different. Maybe I was wrong about that.
Oh, is that it? Well, by Jordan's own logic, he could also be wrong now, right? And apparently, he's under the weird impression that if you were ever wrong about something, like in your whole life, then this automatically disqualifies everything you have to say in a debate. Let's look at another good response to Jordan's claim. The next guy asks him, what does he know about the deity Lono?
Tell me everything that you know about the Polynesian deity Lono, L-O-N-O.
I don't know anything about the Polynesian deity Lono.
So by Jordan's own logic, he's rejecting something he doesn't even know. What Jordan then tries to do is try to claim that he's merely ignorant about Lono instead of rejecting it.
I'll answer that question once you answer my question, which is, do I reject everything that I'm ignorant of?
Okay, here's the problem. Since Jordan is a Christian, then he's not ignorant of everything about Lono. He does know something about it, namely that Lono doesn't exist. His Christian belief logically implies that Lono is unreal, so Jordan can pretend to be ignorant of this. He almost tries to make it sound as if he's agnostic regarding Lono's existence, but he's obviously not. So I think the other guy has a good point, and Jordan would also be rejecting something without fully understanding it. The next topic has to do with morality, and one of the issues is the question of why should we follow a moral code. I think one of the guys had a great question regarding the motivation for being moral.
If God came down and said, here is my moral code, and you should follow it, but even if you follow it, you are still going to end up in hell, are you going to follow it?
Well, that was the question that was put to Job. and to Christ.
No, I don't think it's exactly the same situation, because Job, as a Jew, believed in the resurrection of the dead and an eventual afterlife. So, for all we know, what Job was thinking in his head the moment he was suffering is that God was ultimately going to reward him for staying faithful to him. This is the exact opposite situation that the atheists described. And Christ is an even worse example. Jesus knew beforehand that he was going to resurrect 3 days later and things will be good afterwards. So it's not the same as ending up in hell forever.
My next claim is that everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might not know it.
So how does Jordan justify this claim? Well, basically he does that by defining worship in a very dumb way. Let's take a look.
So I want to start off with defining terms.
Yeah.
How do you define worship?
Prioritize.
I don't think there is any dictionary in the world, or even any person for that matter, that defines worship as merely prioritize. It is simply not the way that the word worship is defined. Worship is actually defined as the feeling or expression of reverence and adoration for a deity. So it's obviously not the same as prioritize. No wonder Jordan makes such silly claims. His basic definition of words is wrong. Next, there is an exchange that shows that Jordan was simply not there to argue in good faith. Let's take a look.
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
But in this context, you are a famous person and it's already part of the background knowledge that you are a Christian. So Jordan is simply playing silly games here. What's even worse, the original title for the video was One Christian versus 20 Atheists, which makes Jordan's answer look even dumber.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
I don't have to tell you. Oh my God, really? Is this guy like 12? Actually, in this context, he is supposed to answer the questions made by the other side. So actually, yeah, he does have to tell us if he's a Christian or not, if the question is relevant for the argument. Next, they got into the topic of the slaughter of the Amalekites, which involved God commanding the unaliving of innocent non-combatants.
So in 1 Samuel 15:3, God says, go and slaughter the Amalekites, slaughter the men, the women, the children, the infants. What's the justification for that?
He had a very weird response to this, in my opinion.
You think that there's ever such a thing as a righteous war?
Maybe there are some wars that are righteous, but unaliving innocent civilians is never righteous. So this specific war is totally not one of them.
As the insistence on voluntary self-sacrifice as the foundational belief. That's a profoundly anti-violence ethos.
Okay, so I agree that Jesus had a profoundly anti-violence ethos. We see this in commands such as love your enemy and to the other cheek. But this strongly conflicts with the God of the Old Testament. In fact, one of the main arguments of mainstream atheists like Richard Dawkins and Alex O'Connor is that God had some kind of massive personality change between the Old and the New Testament. And this is just super weird, to say the least. Next, they talk about God communicating with humans and how humans may get things wrong because we are imperfect.
Imagine something that's perfect.
Sure.
And complete.
Sure.
Okay, and it's trying to communicate with creatures who are anything but that.
Sure.
Well, they're going to get it wrong.
No, I don't agree with this. I think that if God is perfect, he can find a way to communicate something to us in a way that we get it right. If I tell you that the sky is blue, you don't need to be perfect in order to understand that message. You just need a basic level of intelligence and knowledge of the language.
Sure.
Okay, now wait a sec. Do you blame that on the interpreters or the phenomena itself?
No, I will actually blame it on God for the reasons that I just said. I think humans already reach a minimum level of intelligence where they can get things right if the message is worded clearly. So if they don't get it right, it means God failed as a communicator. And by the way, if being imperfect means you are intrinsically unable to understand what God is saying, then how does Jordan know that his current Christian beliefs are correct? Since Jordan himself is imperfect, then he could have gotten things wrong. And maybe what he thinks God wants him to do is the exact reverse opposite of what God actually wants him to do.
What does it mean to accept Christian values precisely, or Christian morality?
It means to aim up as hard as you can, no matter what happens to you.
Once again, Jordan is doing his favorite trick of defining things wrong. Since when is Christian morality defined as aiming as far as you can, no matter what happens to you? This is just not true. That sounds more like something an anime character would say, rather than what Christian morality actually is. And last, we have one comment about interpreting the Bible and how people wrestle with it.
When people have been interpreting religious stories, they wrestle with exactly the question that you just described. When is it fact? When is it poetry? When is it music? When is it metaphor? When is it ritual? When is it time-bound?
Okay, I get it. The Bible can be hard to interpret. Just as a comment, doesn't Jordan think that God could have been just a little bit clearer on the Bible, given that he intended it to be his message to humans? The Bible is supposed to teach us the truth, but it's so ambiguous and confusing that it has spawned over 100,000 different Christian denominations, most of which claim to be the only true one, and many of which even went to war against each other, all over different interpretations of what the Bible actually said. I'm talking about the wars between Protestants and Catholics in Europe during the Protestant Reformation. They were very large and bloody wars, and they happened because many people felt that the church was not interpreting the Bible correctly. God could have avoided all of that if he had simply been a little less confusing on the Bible. Why didn't God just do that? Well, for me, the answer is obvious, because he doesn't exist. And with that, we have reached the end of our video. I don't think Jordan Peterson did a great job here. Thank you for watching. Please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And see you next time. Goodbye.